I love greens. So welcome to my garden and to my kitchen. And I feel having my foundation apron on is just so appropriate because this is all about food that is good for us, that it should be good not only for the elderly but every age. So greens, greens and greens, and I love them. I mean, my garden is full of autumn to winter greens. I just never can get enough of them, and I grow far too many for just the two of us, but they never go to waste. Okay, I am going to convince you that kale is wonderful. Do you believe that? I have trouble really convincing Colin, but every now and then he surprises me. So this is the curly kale from my garden, and this is, I just picked a few of the pieces of Tuscan Kale or Cavallo di Nero, which is black kale, which is more delicate than the curly kale, but this grows and grows and grows. You can have it for months and months, from late summer right through winter. Cavallo Nero needs a little more attention. It's not as vigorous, but it is beautiful, and I'll do something with this later. But for the moment, we'll get to the kale. And I've got a few things I might put with it just to convince you. Also, I thought, well, let's do a pile of greens. Let's do the end of season zucchini when you buy big ones like this, whereas normally the zucchinis I grow, I pick about this length and half the size. But the reason I've chosen this end of season zucchini and end of season flat beans is I'm going to use 3 different cooking methods. I'm going to roast the zucchini in the oven and then press quite big chunks, and I'm going to cut them down in half or quarters because I want to roast them till they're soft and a little coloured, and then I'm going to press them to get all of the moisture out that I can. So yes, I will put salt, I will put olive oil, and I will make sure they all have this, and I'm going to put them into a 200-degree oven, which is sort of my normal point. Let me see. Now, because these small trays of mine, I can have side by side on one shelf in the oven, they will cook better than if they were on 2 separate shelves. So, and besides, there's enough room around them. So let me see, this could be cut in half, and this one cut in half. These are big chunks because this is end of season, and I'll tell you how long it takes in this 200-degree oven. So, the kale I've picked from my garden, the stem is quite thick, so I just pull most of the stem away, pull it away from there. Okay, that's to the chooks or the worms. So I really do listen to you and read your comments, and some of you want me to do some really exotic recipes, which I might love to do, but right now it's about doing the things that are so simple, so luscious, so out of your garden or in from your pantry or your fridge. Okay, now I am going to wash the kale, and it seems an awful lot, but it's so good you want it to be an awful lot. And remember, I've promised you it's going to be good. So I could cut it up, but I'm not bothering because when I pull it away from its stem, I pretty well cut it I tear it in small pieces. I'll just make sure there aren't too many really big ones. My garden has a raised garden bed, so sometimes I don't even bother to wash my greens, depends. Now, kale needs the two processes. First, I blanch it, and the amount of time that I blanch it for is totally dependent on how freshly picked and how young the leaves are. And so if you buy a bunch and it's sort of got a grey look about it, you know that they're quite old leaves and you'd blanch it for several minutes. Perhaps even 3 or 4 minutes. I'll probably only blanch this for between 1 and 2 minutes. I have the water I'll bring to a rapid boil. I think to get someone really interested in kale first, you might have to push a boundary or two. Well, at least I've found I have to. And so because I've got these Golden Delicious apples, and Golden Delicious is a really sweet apple, and sometimes I might have a quince or even an echalot or shallot, depends on which state you live in, because if one of these onions is cooked very slowly, it has a beautiful sweetness about it. The apple will also have a sweetness about it, and the quince, which I love to use, and I will later on because they're nearly ripe, that's more acidity, but somehow it works too. I also have, in case I need it, some parmesan, and so that's for stage 2. I may not use the parmesan depending on how doubting my audience is. Okay, I'm going to put this in. I'm blanching it, and there's an awful lot going in here, I know. Oh, more than I realised perhaps. So let me whiz it around. I specially chose this pan because that's the same one as I'm going to use for stage 2. So because it's on a very fierce hot plate, it didn't take long to get back to a boil. And so I really, and by tossing it around, and because I know it's young, because I picked the younger leaves, I'm now going to turn that off and strain it. I want you to see that this still has, I guess it was what, 1.5 minutes? It still has a vibrancy about it. And put the rest in here. And by spreading it out, it's not going to, it's a bit like pasta. You drain pasta and then you spread it so it doesn't keep on cooking. Okay, so I'll just let that cool a little bit so I can handle it, because I think I will chop it a little. I don't have to do this, but because I might be dealing with some skeptics about how great kale is, I don't want them to have big pieces. Might have gone overboard. I think I might just cook that. I'm going to leave this for making a Tuscan soup or a bean soup, and by adding the kale, do a soup called ribollita, which is twice cooked, I believe. So I'm not going to waste it. I'm just putting it aside. A couple of tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. You might, I actually wiped the pan out. I didn't wash it. I wiped it out with a paper towel because I don't want any water residual there. And even though there's some moisture here, I'm not too worried about that. I'm going to toss off the apples first because I want them to be cooked and have an accentuated sweetness. Oh, and I did have some verjuice to stop it oxidizing, the apple. And I'd do exactly the same if they were slices of quinces or that sweet onion. It's just giving another dimension. Now that's all the cooking the apple needs. And then perhaps I will give it a bit of a squeeze. I'll just put that in. That was only another, that's what I call a glug of olive oil, which was no more than a tablespoon. I don't suppose I can write a recipe that says that 1 glug equals 1 tablespoon. The tiniest bit more. I still have that lovely green. I'll serve it out. You have to trust me when I say I could eat a whole dish of this. It's so good. Just that amount of cooking, nothing else. But if you thought you couldn't convince anyone in the family about that, you could. And apple and parmesan do go together. You could just add some parmesan, a bit like putting icing on a cake. You just have to have fresh produce, do something so simply and enjoy the fact that it tastes as good as it is for you. Remember I said there'll be 3 ways of cooking? Well, the third way might shock you a little, but I wanted to show you just how fantastic, these are flat beans, how fabulous microwave is for greens. So hold your breath. Microwave just needs a little bit of water, and these beans will need, say, 2 minutes. And you saw, all I did was take the top and tail. There's no string. I love the flavour of flat beans. So I'm going to put them into the microwave on high for 2 minutes. I have mentioned it before, but I'm going to say it again. I used to have this thing about microwaves, and now I understand them more. And really, it's the great Canadian food writer and quasi-scientist Harold Maggie that really convinced me, and particularly for greens. And 2 minutes, who doesn't want to do that? Now, of course, I might just finish some butter and black pepper too, because everything to enhance that flavour. But greens, broccoli, sprouting broccoli, even cabbage, it's so fantastic in the microwave and so instant. So we've done the kale, we're doing the slow cooked zucchini in the oven, and we're going to press it out. And now the beans that could be any green. Colin's just got home and wants to come in. He's not allowed, not yet. He's my doubter about kale. And I should say, I love it so much. I use it raw in my smoothie most mornings with a piece of fruit and some ginger and yogurt and a bit of protein powder, and that really starts my day off. And I came across that when Peter Kundal, who was this amazing presenter on ABC gardening for so many years from Tasmania, and he was very hale and hearty to a very old age, and I thought I could do that too. That's a big bowl for not so many beans, but a little bit of, just a little bit of butter, a little bit of butter, a little bit of salt, and a little bit of black pepper, and toss them. And the thing about these beans, one of the things is cooking a bean long enough that it's not squeaky, which is half cooked, but not too long, so you still have a vibrancy of colour. And that's what the microwave can do for you. But I will just taste one because this is end of season, so they're not as great as they are earlier. They're a bean I like raw as much as I like cooked, but that butter, that little bit of salt, that pepper, 2 minutes, perhaps 2.5 if you want them softer. Just the slightest bit squeaky. I did one tray with the cut side up and one tray with the cut side down, and I'll show you the difference when I put this back in. I want them so soft, but they do need the colour for this to work for me. Okay, cut side down. Let me see. We have much better colour. See? So this is where it's good for me. It's good for me to test this out, because normally I just do everything without thinking very much. But you can see this is the result that I wanted. But by doing the two trays separately, I've got it clearly. The way to do it is cut side down to get the colour, and that is 30 minutes. And in fact, can you see how squashy it is? It's just cooked so much better. And this is how I'm doing this. These are baked, they've got the colour, they've got the cookedness, but I'm going to press down on them. I'll show you with this one, while the other is just, I want it pressed down because I want them totally collapsed, and then the moisture will come out. And the more moisture that comes out, the more flavour that we have. So there, you could call it a mash. And I'll do a small vinaigrette of verjuice and olive oil and salt. Now, and mint. Gosh, I think that this goes back to books I read 40 years ago from Elizabeth David. Oh, something is ready. mint goes so beautifully with this. I'll put those out to get a little bit cooler now. I'll tear my mint and have it ready. When I make a vinaigrette with verjuice, I often use a nut oil, but I just happen to have in the fridge, always keep them in the fridge, nut oils, not olive oil ever. But whatever, with a vinaigrette with verjuice, you actually use it at 50% of each. So 1 to 1, which is most unusual. Okay, I'm just chopping the mint. The mint is also end of season. I'll just try this last bit. Because these were actually cooked, but I just wanted the colour, so you can see they were not quite as colourful, but because I'm wanting to get this plated, I'm going to go ahead, now that I know cut side down, and of course it does make sense. This pressed down, so we have the juice come out of it. See, zucchini grows in your garden like kale does. It grows so fast, so prolifically that you can never, it seems, a family can never keep up with it. So it's always about finding other ways. And this end of season way for me, where it's the larger zucchini, by baking it, you take that extra juice out of it, the moisture out of it that gives an intensity of flavour. Now, I'm going to put a little bit of the vinaigrette on now while it's cooling, because it will accept it even more. And that's all that I'm using on the vinaigrette, but I can't. I should let this cool before I put the mint on. But because Colin's arrived home, and I really just have to show you, you can really think about this. This has cooled another 15 minutes or so. It's had the vinaigrette, so it's whooshing it up. And that would have been 1 tablespoon of olive oil, 1 tablespoon of verjuice is all I've used. And now this on top, this, and a bit like kale. This is a way to love zucchini as much as you love any other green vegetable. And it grows like crazy, and it's beautiful eating. And of course, it's all those things: the olive oil, the verjuice, the mint, the salt. Is it too hot to eat? Perhaps. It's so good. So thanks, Elizabeth David. Nearly 40 years ago, you gave me that idea, and I still do it.